Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Business and Utility Subcommittee. Today is Wednesday, February the 12th, 2025. It's 3 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Members, please sign in so we can take the roll. Madam Clerk, take the roll, please. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, you have 10 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members, before we get started today, do we have any personal orders? If not, we'll go ahead and get started on our calendar. And that's first up, it's House Bill 421 by Speaker Pro Tem Marsh. Speaker Marsh, you are, do we have a motion? We have a motion. We have a second. Speaker Marsh, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. This bill concerns the utility districts and their officials that serve on their boards. Currently, utility officials are required to get 12 hours of continuing education within the first year of serving on the utility board and an additional 12 years in the next 3 years. What we're doing here is reducing the additional 12 hours in the following 3 years down to 6 hours instead of 12. And also, the second thing in the bill does is to allow for a former utility commissioner who fails to get the training in a timely manner and who is disqualified from the board. Now they're disqualified forever. And what we're trying to do here is give them a chance to come back on the board if they meet certain requirements and gets approved by the utility board up here with the comptroller's office. They can, with training, get back on the board. And that's what the two things do. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Speaker Marsh, for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions for the sponsor? And Speaker Marsh, Leader Camper, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaker, you said the people coming back on would have to go through training as well. Did I hear you say that? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Speaker Marsh, we were looking at this and we actually did find something here that Legal Services found. I can call on them and explain it, but we're going to need to make a correction for this before we move it to full committee. So if there's no objection, we'd like to hold this for about 2 weeks if that's possible.
That's good with me.
Without objection, House Bill 421 is rolled 2 weeks. Members, that brings us to item number 2. That's House Bill 100 by Chairman Howell. We have a motion. We have a second. Sponsor, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 100 came to me from the city of Cleveland and the president of the Cleveland Utilities there in Bradley County. A few months ago, the city council voted to allow the Cleveland municipality, Cleveland Municipal Electric Company to become an authority. So it's now the Cleveland Utility Authority. This change came about when the utility decided to expand into broadband. So now they provide 4 utilities, broadband, electric, water, as well as wastewater. Unfortunately, in making this change, Section 2, which there is in your bill, was left out. And unfortunately, currently, the board members can't get paid. So this just adds this Section 2 back into the code, which allows the members of the board to be compensated, as do all other similar boards in the state of Tennessee, according to TCA 7-52-110. That's all the bill does. And appreciate passage.
Thank you, Chairman, for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions for the sponsor? I do not see any. Question has been called. So, Madam Clerk, if you will open the vote, and members, all in favor of sending House Bill 100 to full commerce, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Chairman Vaughn, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 10 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Sponsor, we will see you next week in full commerce. Members, that brings us to item number 3. That's House Bill 182 from Chair Lady Littleton. We have a motion. We have a second. Sponsor, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. The Ink of Hope Act integrates human trafficking awareness, training into tattoo licensure requirements in Tennessee. Traffickers frequently brand victims with tattoos. As a method of control, making tattoo artists is uniquely positioned to identify and report suspected trafficking. This bill ensures that tattoo artists have the necessary tools to recognize signs of trafficking safely and report suspicions of law enforcement. I'm out of breath. I was in another committee. I'm sorry. I apologize. The bill strengthens Tennessee's position as a leader in anti-trafficking efforts by leveraging tattoo industry's role in the survivor identification. I need to walk more. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Chair Lady, thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions for the sponsor on this legislation? Seeing none, members, Madam Clerk, if you'll open the vote, and members, we are voting on House Bill 182 to send it to full commerce. All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? If not, Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 10 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. House Bill 182 moves on to full commerce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I may just stand here a little while I'm restless.
Have a seat,
Thank you.
Chair Lady Littleton. Take a load off. Next up is House Bill 303 by Representative Martin. We have a motion. We have a second. Representative Martin, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This legislation allows for a one-time antique and unique auto auction at the 6th Annual Chattanooga Motor Car Festival, which is planned for October the 17th through the 19th. Approximately 12,000 individuals attend this festival every year, so it's an economic catalyst in Chattanooga. And event organizers have contributed significant funding to the Neuroscience Center at CHI Memorial and Neuroscience Innovation Foundation since the festival's beginning. I would appreciate your continued support of this event, and I'm ready to answer any questions.
Thank you, sponsor, for that explanation. Members, you've heard the explanation. Do we have any questions on the bill? Chairman Lafferty, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just curious, because I'm new to the committee. Is this an annual event, annual bill?
Sponsor, you recognized?
Yes, it's one of those things that we have to bring every year because it's a unique antique auction.
Chairman Lafferty.
Thank you for that answer, and I hope you guys raise a ton of money. Thank you.
Members, we have any other questions for the sponsor? If not, we're voting to send House Bill 303 to full commerce. Madam Clerk, can you open the vote, please? Members, all in favor of sending this to full commerce, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote, please.
Mr. Chairman, you have 10 ayes, 0 nays.
House Bill 303 passes. It's on its way to full commerce.
Thank you.
Members, that brings us to the end of the calendar, and we do have a special presentation today. Before we do, Representative Hardaway, you are recognized. For what purpose?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to get in on that last vote, do I need to see the clerk or fill out something?
See the clerk and to register that vote, please.
All right, thank you.
Yep. All right, members, we're going to go out of session, and we'd like to invite up some friends from ECD. We've got Braden Stover and Taylor Beatty are going to be giving us an update on the B dollars that will be coming down from the federal government. If you don't know this, we've got almost $1 billion, not quite that much, coming down that's going to be dispersed, and so they're going to give us an update on that today. And Braden, did you have a presentation to go on the board? Is that what you were telling?
Would you bring us a check?
And so before you guys get started, if you could just state your name for the record, and then I'll just turn you guys loose and let y'all do your presentation. And we're trying to get this up there for you.
Perfect.
Braden, why
Yes,
don't
sir.
y'all go ahead and get
Sure.
started? We will be working on this. We're
Okay.
kind of new to this system, and it's not toggling over to the laptop like
No
we'd like
worries.
it to, but I'm sure y'all have it
We can.
registered to memory. So
we
go
can
ahead and
kick
get
it
started
off.
on it. If we get it
Absolutely.
up, we'll get it up.
Okay,
You're
sounds
recognized.
Well, thank you, Chairman, Committee. Braden Stover, TNECD. With me is Taylor Beatty, our broadband director. We are your afternoon entertainment, so we will keep it fun. Just to, I guess, kind of set the stage, and then I'll turn it over to Taylor to talk specifics of the BEAD plan. We currently are moving forward with this. There's been a lot of discussions, I think you all have probably seen, just at the federal level with various programs being in different stages of change, but we have yet to receive any guidance of pausing or anything of that nature. So we are moving forward with our plan. We have submitted an amendment to our plan for NTIA to consider. And so we are still waiting to hear back from that. And that is around our affordability criteria on our scoring. And so we're waiting to hear that has been approved. And so that leaves us in a holding pattern of some sorts between that and then when we have to have the plan and the allocations made by the first week of August. So our timeline is quickly getting shorter by the day, but I trust in Taylor and her team to make sure that we get those allocations out in a good amount of time. And so just wanted to kind of set the stage of where that's at. Senator Blackburn and her team are being very helpful to us as we've been navigating that at the federal level. And as soon as we hear final word on when that plan is approved and we can proceed again, we will open up the grant rounds and begin accepting applications. So that is where things stand right now. And I will turn it over to Taylor to talk specifics, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Thanks, Braden. I'm Taylor Beatty, broadband director at ECD. And I will, as Chairman Boyd said, have a lot of this definitely committed to memory. So happy to do that. And we can absolutely send our slide deck out afterwards so that you all have these numbers that I'm going to kind of rattle off. Again, as Braden said, we're going to give a quick overview of, again, just a refresher. This is what BEAD is. This is who is administering it and what that looks like, and give just an update on the status and timeline, and then just a quick overview of some of the work that we did last year at ECD and broadband and our investments there. So the first thing I'll hit on is just, again, what is the BEAD program? You have probably heard BEAD a lot in terms of broadband and maybe wondering, what does that acronym mean? That is Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. And that is the direct language of the program from the federal government. It was part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021. And each state was given an allocation to essentially finish the job in terms of getting broadband to those that are unserved and underserved. Tennessee's allocation was $813 million. The allocation was based on a formula on the amount of households and businesses in Tennessee that lack adequate broadband speed. And the program is administered by NTIA. As Braden said, that's the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. A lot of syllables there, so we just call it NTIA. And they work directly with us, grant us the funding, and we will sub-grant it out to internet service providers. We also wanted to hit on something you might also hear, and that is a broadband serviceable location, or a BSL. And that is just a location that's eligible for BEAD funding. It's either a unserved or an underserved location, and we can absolutely send you some information. If you have questions about it, about what exactly that criteria is to be unserved or underserved. But in short, there's about 430,000 Tennesseans that still don't have access to internet. It's a little over 170,000 locations that fall into that unserved and underserved category, and those are the locations we'll be going after with this money. And we'll be working directly with the internet service providers. So we will open up a grant round and allow internet service providers to apply. So what does our timeline look for that? As Braden said, we are a little bit in a holding pattern in terms of waiting till we get that amendment passed. The amendment approved. We've been told from NTIA this week that they're hoping to get that approved next week or the week after. So we're still set up to be able to launch the program in late February. We had planned to launch the program in November, so we're kind of pedaling along a little bit of a delay based on the federal timelines, but we have been incredibly active with engagement with our providers. They've been really engaged and active, and we've gotten information and letters of intent for every eligible area in the state. So we feel very confident that we'll get an application and be able to finish the job with this funding. In May, we will likely have a second round to kind of come back and finish anything that we didn't get an application for or we didn't get a viable application for. What I mean by viable is it just didn't meet the federal criteria for what we're able to fund. So we'll likely have that second round. We plan to submit our final proposal, which is a list of all the locations we're serving and who is getting how much funding to serve those at the end of July. And as Braden said, that proposal is due to NTIA by the end of August, or excuse me, at the beginning of August. And then NTIA will work with us to approve it. And then we can move forward with contracting and starting construction. Our final proposal, as I mentioned, must include 100% coverage to all of those unserved and underserved locations. And we're in a 365-day timeline or shot clock from when our initial proposal was approved. So that's that first week of August is going to be 365 days from when we had to, or when we got our initial proposal approved to get that final proposal submitted this August. I'll also hit on just a couple of timeline pieces for awareness. We submitted our initial proposal to NTIA back in December of 2023. So this will give you just a little snapshot sometimes of how federal timelines are delayed. They went through approval of that, and we finally got the initial approval of that August 2nd, as I mentioned last year. We got our challenge process results approved in January, which is just an opportunity for providers to say, this is where I'm serving or where we're currently built out so we don't duplicate funds. That was approved by NTIA in January. And then, as Braden said, we're waiting that final amendment being approved that was submitted before Christmas in December 20th of last year. And we can't accept applications for project areas until we get that approved, but we anticipate that to be in the next coming weeks. And then we'll be submitting that full list of awards in August. The final thing that I'll hit on before I close and open it to any questions is just some of the good work that we've been able to do the last year in terms of broadband. 2024 calendar year was a huge year for us. As many of you all remember, we started out several years back with a budget of $10 million, and that has continued to grow over time. But it's been an incredible opportunity for us to invest in our communities in Tennessee, not just in infrastructure, but also in what we call digital opportunity. And that's looking at how do we make sure Tennesseans have the resources that they need to actually adopt and take use of the infrastructure and the technology and devices that will be available to them because of this funding. And so I wanted to hit on a couple of things. One, in 2024, in the calendar year, we invested $264 million in broadband programs, and that's broken down out in a couple ways. One, about 131 of that was for broadband infrastructure. And then the other half of that, it's about 133, was in some of those digital opportunity programs that included connected community facilities. So there's interim solutions for folks as we're building out infrastructure. And that is COVID relief money from ARPA. And so it's an opportunity for us to hit COVID and pandemic impacted communities there. We also did 43 million of that in digital skills education and workforce development. So investing in the broadband workforce pipeline, as you can imagine, with us getting a lot of funding, almost $1 billion, matched with what we've invested, there's a shortage of workers. And so we're working really hard with our TCATs, but also educational entities to invest in the broadband workforce pipeline, but also support jobs in Tennessee that are going to be created and sustained because of this infrastructure. So making sure that Tennesseans and rural communities have the resources and skills to do work from home, but also advanced skilling like coding, software, technology, things of that nature. And then finally, we supported broadband ready communities, which was meeting a broadband adoption need in any community in Tennessee. And then we also invested in $5 million in a TCAP broadband program. Overall, we funded projects in 81 counties and have been able to serve or impact over 700,000 Tennesseans. All of this work that I just mentioned in that $264 million will be completed by the end of 2026, as it is ARPA funded programs that are administered by the state. And the last thing I want to mention before I turn it over to questions is just how important the programs that we've been able to administer over the last several years. When Governor Lee came into office, according to the FCC, there were more than 20% of Tennesseans that lacked access to broadband, and today that's less than 5%. And I want to say that as a salute to you all, to know that under your leadership and the work that FSAG has done, but also Tennessee General Assembly, to help us have opportunities to serve these folks, our programs are working and they're making a huge difference. And so wanted to also thank you all for your support of those programs as well. With that, I know that was fast and furious and you didn't have the numbers in front of you, so we'll make sure you get the slide deck. But I certainly wanted to open it up for any questions that you may have about BEAD or our broadband programs.
Taylor, thank you for that update and background on that. Members, we have any questions? Representative Bricken, you are recognized.
Do we need to?
We can hear you. Go ahead. We're all going to get still.
Yeah, kind of two questions. I'm not sure if when you get your slides, will we be able to see the cumulative total amount that the state and federal government, since we initiated the broadband program for the last several years? Will that be in those slides?
Taylor Beatty, ECD, absolutely. Yes, we can absolutely get you that. Yep.
Last question, just more curious. If I'm 10 miles off the highway in the rural part of Coffee or Grundy County, can I demand access to broadband to come 10 miles down the road or not?
Taylor, you recognize?
That is a great question. I think it would depend in terms of and I will say this, that we can absolutely look if there's a specific location. I think it depends in terms of our funding, whether or not we can use our funding, if it is deemed by the federal rules as eligible or not in that area, or unserved or underserved. And in terms of outside of our program, I can't speak to whether or not, you could do that just as a private citizen, but we can absolutely look into if there's a specific example of that, we can have our team look into it.
Representative Birkin.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. No, it's kind of, I wasn't sure when you said 100%
Mhm.
coverage.
Yep.
I just was trying to isolate down that, are there going to really be some exceptions out there that won't follow that 100%? So.
Taylor.
Got it. Great question. So, as far as we kind of see this program going, I mean, in terms of I would say this, any eligible location had to be a part of the FCC broadband fabric, which is a map that had all the eligible broadband serviceable locations. So the one caveat to that is a new build that wasn't there, or a location that is not serviceable. And by serviceable, that typically means access to electricity or not. And so I would say there are a couple of routes forward there for us. One, we hoped to get any of those areas that were not covered under BEAD eligibility under our ARPA funding, but we anticipate the rest of those will be covered during the BEAD funding. And if there are any outliers, we're willing to work with providers to see what we can do to make sure they get served.
Representative Birkin, anything else? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. And it's good to be on the mic that I finally figured out. Kind of odd that we be discussing technology at this point. And good afternoon. Thank you for being here. The funding, the federal funding, is there any danger that it can be rescinded? Or is
Taylor?
that up in the air?
Braden.
Sure. I would say, at this point, it's all speculation. We're moving forward like it will continue to be there until we know otherwise. But, I think it would be up to the federal government if that gets reappropriated in a different way, or if they have other guidelines they want to change at the federal level. I think we are just, we're awaiting that guidance, and we're at their
Mercy.
Or I guess I wouldn't use that word, but we are at at their lead. So,
Representative Hardaway.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. So the funding comes in as reimbursement after the work or beforehand?
Taylor.
Great question. So the standard for the way we've done it on the state level is it's reimbursable in terms of they do work, they submit invoices to us, and we reimburse it. Under the federal guidelines, we're exploring those kinds of flexibilities. We know that there are a couple of different routes that the federal rules and guidance allow us to do that, but as of right now, we're sticking with the reimbursable basis.
Representative Hardaway.
So that could, and this is just a statement, that could place some of the small businesses and other service providers at risk of not getting paid at all if things don't go right. And you can hold that in case you don't want to get into that. My next question, final question, is about ongoing subsidies for our citizens for the actual service itself. Low income, no income, fixed income.
Taylor.
So currently we don't have any subsidies for that on the state level. There was the Affordable Connectivity Program that the federal government was administering through the FCC. That funding source for that ended in spring of 2024. I know there's conversations on the federal level about bringing that back or what that might look like. We also will say have funding through the Digital Equity Act at the federal level to address things like affordability and a continuation of some of our broadband adoption programs. So we're at the exploratory phase now for how we want to pursue making sure that Tennesseans have the resources in at-risk and distressed communities or populations that we can work with around affordability measures and resources in that nature with the ending of the ACP program.
Representative
Thank you,
Hardaway.
Chairman.
Chairman
Thank you,
Bond.
ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm just curious, out of our committee members here, if anybody wants to show of hands, have any of y'all participated or gotten digital services through any of the grant programs that we've got? Has anybody got access now to location that they didn't have before? Well, I am one of those people. Y'all know I proudly represent the District of Champions, District 95, in Eastern Shelby County. But I am from Hardeman County, which is a distressed county, and they received a grant, I think, through ARPA, and their energy authority formed a partnership with Aeneas Telecom. And I was shocked at the ease for somebody who I got to tell my publicly traded friends that I acquire internet service from now, they're a lot more difficult to deal with than the fine folks at Bolivar Energy Authority. It was so seamless. The install was done so well. And I think they debit my account $45 a month for me to have internet service at my farm home. That sounds like I have a cottage somewhere or a vacation home. It's a house I grew up in. I still have to maintain the old farmhouse, but it is made so much easier by that. And it is I was really surprised that there were no more hoops to jump through, that it was easy to get and very reasonable to pay for. And so for that my one experience interfacing with this program has been a positive one. And it makes me think about the other folks that think that, they've been locked out of this market for so long that whenever they finally do get to access it, how they must feel to have that. I mean, because now I get college football on the weekends up there that I used to. I had to making sure my aerial was turned right. So I would encourage. I'm really. Sometimes I question the cost and the flooding of the dollars into a zone like we have this area. But I can tell you that from a customer interface, it has really gone well.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
Any more satisfied customers out there? Hey, Taylor, could you tell the committee kind of the definition or who qualifies as unserved or underserved?
Yes. So, and I'll make sure, well, actually, we have slides. I was going to say this is a little confusing if you're not looking at it. So this slide shows the definition of unserved and underserved. So unserved is a location that lacks broadband at speeds of 25 over 3 megabits per second. And underserved is a location that has 25/3, but it lacks 100 over 20. If you're curious what that looks like and what your internet speed is, Google your speed test, and you can kind of see and get a feel for what that might look like for your basis. That's what we always tell folks to do, just to get kind of a understanding what that looks like. But this shows that breakdown as well. We have about 127,000 unserved broadband serviceable locations and 45 underserved.
Okay. Thank you, Taylor.
Of course.
Members of the committee, do we have any other questions? Chairman Lafferty, you are recognized.
Hey, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. Just curious, how much longer will it take if we've gone from 20% down to 5% relatively quickly? How much longer do you think we have to complete the mission?
So our goal with this funding, so the federal guidelines require the BEAD funding to be spent by 2030. We anticipate it to be much sooner than that. So our goal is to make sure that it's completed by 2028. We have an amazing track record with a lot of our providers deploying very quickly. And so it is not, it's not unique to us to see a provider under a 2-year grant contract with us and finish in the first year or finish significantly early. So I think they like to compete with each other to say, hey, we want to get it done faster than all of our counterparts. So I would say our absolute goal is to get it done by the end of 2028.
Chairman Lafferty? Okay. Taylor, quick question. I know that fiber is what everybody's running, but are there any providers out there that are using this for coaxial cable that maybe meets the speed requirements or anything wireless, or is it all fiber?
So the current notice of funding opportunity, the guidelines for the federal program, it's a fiber preferential program. So essentially we have to open it up. We open the application process up to everybody, but we have to review the fiber applications first. If we don't get a viable fiber application, we can then consider alternate technologies or move those on to a second round where we open it up again and see what flexibilities we might can adjust. But it really is geared towards fiber, and that is coming from the federal guidelines there, and we've just been in compliance with that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on the slides that you wanted us to see? I know we just got them turned on.
I don't think so. We'll certainly send it out. It's just the visual of everything I went over. So if we'll make sure you guys get a copy of it.
And I did see Representative Hardaway's hand go up. You're recognized, Representative.
Thank you, Chairman. Back to small business and their financial exposure. Are we prepared to hold them harmless if something does happen to the federal funding and it either ceases or are not able to get federal dollars to reimburse?
Braden, you recognized.
Thank you. I mean, I guess I would put it that we wouldn't move forward with the grant program until we knew that the funding was there and that we were cleared to proceed. So we don't foresee a situation where we would get a year down the road and then all of a sudden the funding would disappear. So there would not be a situation where businesses, providers would be left holding the bag, if that's what your question's getting at. We would have everything straightened out on the front end and be prepared to move forward.
Representative, you're recognized.
Well, yes, in the best of circumstances, but with the way that things are being put on hold now, I would suggest that we at least look at the options that might be available for the state to step in if there's a need for gap funding, if something is frozen on the federal level. We've seen some things that happen, some things that we're not sure if they happened, but that kind of disruption for small businesses could be fatal.
Sure, understood. We can definitely keep an eye on that for sure. Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Chairman.
Members, do we have any more questions for ECD while they're here? If not, Braden and Taylor, it's always great to hear from you. Appreciate all the work that you guys are putting in. Look forward to getting this broadband deployed. Members, we're going to go back in session, and that concludes our business for the day, so this meeting is adjourned.